Welcome to the Grow Podcast. I'm Pastor Mike with New Hope Network. We're here to help you take your next step in your relationship with Jesus. I'm so glad you're with us today.
What's up, New Hope family? Welcome to the Grow Podcast. My name is David. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm here with Pastor Mike, as always. This is episode 49.
It is episode 49. You can count.
We are. Thank you. Well, I can't count. I can just say the one number.
It's a good thing I wrote it there on the top of our notes.
It's on my page, episode 49. Nice. But that means we're one away from episode 50.
You really can't count.
It is now officially too late to submit questions for Pastor Mike's 50th
because I had a few
episode.
Questions I wanted you to ask.
Yeah, that's why that is why I am nixing the option to send me questions. Not because I don't want them anymore, but because by the time you get them to me, we may have already recorded this podcast. So, or the next podcast, I should say. By the time you hear this, we've definitely recorded this podcast.
Yes.
That is how time works.
Yes.
I've confused myself.
Yes.
Pastor Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Doing well. It's one of those days where on this just weather. It's hard to talk about weather because, you know, when you listen to this, you're all over the place.
Sure.
But it's windy and pollen is everywhere right now.
Oh, so just every day in North Dakota.
Yeah. And so I'm on Benadryl today, so this might be a real interesting conversation.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
We'll try to make this our shortest podcast.
Maybe we should have done that. You asked me questions for that day. That could make it real interesting.
We should have you on Benadryl next week. My wife can't take Benadryl, we learned.
I normally can't.
She took it once. She had never taken it before. She's having terrible allergies. We were with our family. We were out on the lake, and they gave her a Benadryl. Do you normally take 2 at a time? What's a normal dose?
It depends.
She probably should have had a half dose, and she took a full dose.
Yeah.
And you know Joanna very well.
Yeah.
Not a mean person.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? She's not a mean
not
person. She was one of the meanest human beings you've ever met on Benadryl. So she has not taken it since. Now we have this
on recording.
She knows. She'll tell you.
Let's make sure we have that so where we can play that for her.
The crazy thing is she knew she was being mean. Like she was conscious of it the whole time, but she just couldn't stop it. So we avoid Benadryl in the Lundeen household.
Me sleepy.
I was trying to pick up a salad for lunch, and I tried to get out of my car, and I couldn't. That's how windy it is in North Dakota. I literally had to use my body weight to push my door open.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people stayed here when they got here.
My grandma was one of them. My grandma and grandpa were one of them. They lived in sod houses about an hour north of where we're currently at here.
How did they survive?
Yeah. Can you imagine in the winter they had a blanket over the window and they went out and picked up frozen buffalo chips, basically frozen buffalo patties. And buffalo dung.
I think we all
just want to make sure
followed along, Pastor Mike. But thank you.
I just wanted to drive that home, and that's what they burned for fuel.
I learned from watching, I think, Survivor Man that like elephant dung makes great fuel because it just keeps burning for a really long time. So, I mean, props to them.
This is the Grow Podcast.
Well,
we've all grown in our knowledge today.
You have grown in your walk with the Lord so far. Now, maybe not yet. But you will, because we're going to talk about finding a vision today.
And since we were talking about that, this is a horrible transition. Horrible transition.
Well, we're excellent at horrible transitions.
So let me ask you, because I know you're kind of a foodie. What food can you think of that tastes awesome but looks horrible?
Tastes awesome but looks... Well, I mean, like all soup.
Soup,
just or like stew. It just looks like mush, you know. But I enjoy it. I'm trying to think. I feel like there's a good answer to this that isn't popping into my head right now because it's been a lot.
Oatmeal looks awful.
Yeah, but I don't really enjoy eating oatmeal either. I mean, like a stew or a. Because it just looks like mush. You know what? So my mom makes this, and now Joanna makes it. She uses my mom's recipe, and it's fantastic. Potato soup. Perfect, good winter food or whatever. Yeah. But especially like the day after when you reheat it, it tastes even better.
You pull it out of the fridge, it just looks...
Oh, my word.
It looks awful.
After Thanksgiving, the gravy before you microwave it looks... Oh, man, that's terrible. Yeah.
We're big into cooking shows at our house, especially Kylie. She watches all these cooking shows, Gordon Ramsay and all these other kinds of things.
Does she learn things to cook and then make them, or just watch?
Actually, our boys do. Our boys
That's
have
nice.
become incredible cooks because they watch and just get intrigued, and especially our oldest
That's pretty
loves it. But one of the things they talk about is, especially in high-end restaurants, how the food looks matters.
Right.
And I'm going somewhere with this. Yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah, you believe it? How the food looks matters, and they talk often about how it does affect your taste. Some, if it doesn't look good, then mentally it's like, I don't know that it's going to taste good, even though it might, really, really taste good. And that's a transition for us. The last 2 weeks we've been talking about purpose, and our general purpose. God has a general purpose for us of loving God, love your neighbor, make disciples. But then He also has a specific purpose for all of us, and we talked about how to discover that.
Yep.
And that's really like food that tastes good. That's like the purpose, and the purpose of food is to be nourishing and hopefully taste good along the way. But our vision, how it looks, matters. And we tend to kind of think of having a vision for something as the same as purpose. And they're connected, but they're two different things. And a vision, you and I need a vision for our lives. One of the things that I'm going through right now is I've just hired a health coach. I have like coaches for all parts of my life just to help me grow.
Like I'm your basketball coach.
Yeah,
as we saw.
I don't know if I would. I wouldn't know if I were you. If I would claim that
we were one and done on that, but we tried.
We'll see. The health coach may be just as successful for me. But one of the things that she talks about is actually a dear friend of ours who was part of our church plant in California. She says, you've got to not just know that being healthy is good, that's your purpose, but you have to have a clear picture for why. And have a clear picture of the end of it and kind of the end product, because it matters. So purpose, if we were to separate these out, purpose is the direction for you, is the purpose, is the direction and reason you were made. God, and we've talked about that.
Yep.
God made you for a reason. A vision, your vision is you getting a picture of what that might look like.
Okay.
And it has to be a motivating one, because if you don't know your why. And it's more than purpose. If you can't see a clear picture and make progress towards it, doesn't matter whether you know your purpose or not. You're going to get stuck. You're going to get sidetracked, and you're going to give into temptation to step off to the side.
Talk to me more about what you mean when you say it has to be a motivating one. In what way does
vision makes it appealing? So well, let's talk about health, because I've got this kind of in my mind right now. So one of the things that our coach, she coaches both Kylie and I, and we'll let you know in like a year whether it actually works or not. But she said,
send Pastor Mike your adult medium shirts to see if he can fit in them.
No. Even when I was at the health coach, medium didn't work. But what she says, it's one thing to say, okay, I know I need to be healthy, and to have a picture of what health looks like. And a vision might be of what it might look like might be a weight goal, or like I want to be able to play basketball, or whatever. But if it doesn't motivate you, it doesn't. Then it's not a motivating, appealing vision. So, like for me. One of the things that motivates me, and there's a negative and a positive to this when it comes to health, is my own parents have struggled with health in their later years, and some of that we can't help, but a lot of it we can, and they'll say if they had made some different choices early on, they would be much more free to travel, spend time with the grandkids, and that. And so for Kylie and I, we want to be available to the kingdom for as long as we possibly can, physically, mentally, spiritually, and available to our family for as long as we possibly can. And Kylie would say, okay, boys, hurry up and get married and have grandkids. But I would put that on the recording.
No, you'd never say that into a microphone.
No, not at all.
So, okay.
But vision makes it appealing. So purpose is good, but vision makes it appealing.
So if you said that God has a purpose for all of us.
Yeah.
And then you said, and you need a vision. So
Yeah.
am I responsible for my own vision? Does God give me my, that vision? Is that just I pick what I want?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because I have a couple great ideas.
Yeah, and well, let's go to Scripture, because that's always a good place for us to go.
That's
right?
probably smart.
Ephesians
here on the Grow
2.
Podcast.
Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are God's handiwork." In other words, God. The literal word is He handcrafted each one of us uniquely.
Mm-hmm.
So that describes that. One of the things that tells us is He designed you specifically for a purpose. It's like,
Yep.
We create a tool for a specific purpose. Right. We create a piece of art. And we're created in Jesus Christ to do good works. There's big purpose, which God prepared in advance for us to do. So here's the mistake that we often make is we go, okay, I need a vision. What do I want to do?
Yeah.
What do I think? And so we try and create our own vision. And for most of us, and it depends somewhat on personality, for most of us, that's not enough.
Sure.
Because it's driven out of selfishness.
Right.
And selfishness, even though it can be incredibly motivating, let's just be honest, it is also incredibly damaging.
Sure.
So we tend to determine what we want for ourselves, but we have to realize God has a bigger plan.
Yeah.
And so we need to ask Him for a vision and pursue it. There are some people in history, God just made it clear.
Right.
But when you really look at their lives, a lot of it was because they were avoiding Him. I mean, Moses was not out in the desert saying, God, give me a vision. He was like, okay, my life sucks.
Yeah.
And I got expelled and it didn't work. And then God had to meet him with a burning bush.
So you're saying if I want a clear vision, I have to have a terrible life?
No, that's probably
I have
not.
to be inside the belly of a giant fish or something like
Yeah,
that?
when you look at most of those, when God had to make it clear, it was because they were going the other way, and that's not the best way. It's not the best way.
As you move us into this next thing, I'm going to ask our producer if he can toss me a water. Those of you joining us in the video podcast will get to see if I can catch said bottle of water.
That's good. This will see if you can practice what you coach.
Yeah, we do a lot of catching water bottles on the basketball court.
Look at that, one-handed.
An excellent toss from our producer.
Nice.
Thank you. Sorry about that, everybody.
No, it's all good.
We'll continue on.
So let's talk about how to begin to find your vision, because I think it is a pursuit, and I think it's a lifelong pursuit. Are we catching that?
I'm
that
sure
sounds
that
like a
producer,
commercial.
is that sounding good in your ears there?
It sounds like
pouring a Coca-Cola into the
and you want to hear the bubbles and kind of thing.
I had ice here. I figured I might as well make the
Nice.
water cold. I apologize, everybody, for derailing the podcast.
But he doesn't really mean it. But so when you're pursuing your vision, there's really a lot of this has to do with identity, and we're going to talk more about identity in the future. And I don't have that quite scheduled up because identity matters. I want to do some more research into this to make sure I can explain it clearly and concisely and compellingly. But to find your vision, you and I need to grow in our understanding of two main categories: who God is, because He's the one who made you.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about some of the basics before, like the big things of who God is. He's the omnis, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscience, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present, things like that. He isn't just loving; He is love. He is holy. But since He's the one who created you, and He said He created you in His image, the imago Dei, the ancient church used to call it, we're made in His image, then we need to understand who He is if we want to begin to understand who He created us to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then, only then can you begin to understand. So begin on that journey, and we'll spend all of eternity on that. So it's not like there's a, whoop, this is it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about what that means in a moment. But then you can begin to ask the question of who you are, because you're uniquely created by a unique God. You've been messed up by sin, but you can be forgiven. You can be restored. We've talked about that. And you've been designed with a purpose and for a purpose. So you need to find your vision, you need to be working on two things. Understanding who God is, and we do that primarily by spending time in His Word and in worship.
Yep.
And understanding who you are, and we discover that primarily by spending time in His Word and in intentional relationships. Because if you want to know who you are, your strengths and your weaknesses, hang out with people.
Yeah.
One of the first things, Kylie and I talk about this often, one of the first things and most disturbing things we learned about ourselves after we got married was how incredibly selfish we were.
Oh. What a perfect match.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we thought we kind of had figured out, and then we had kids and realized, oh,
these kids are really selfish.
Yeah, these kids are really
perfect.
selfish.
Yeah.
But that's how you find kind of your true identity. And so that's why when we go to Ephesians, you're God's masterpiece. And it says he has a plan and a design for you. You go back to the book of Psalms where it says, he knitted you together in your mother's womb. He had this plan and this design. Now, people say, does that mean he made every choice for you? No. He knitted you together. He designed you for a purpose, and he gave you the choice to say yes or no to it along the way. And here's the deal with your identity. It's not always clear right now what the end product will be, but it is clear right now what your next step will be towards it. And so he will, as you seek him, he will begin to give you a vision of who he wants you to be. It won't be complete. In fact, I think the exciting thing about eternity, and we talk about this often, is we'll think, man, I've learned all that I can learn, and there's more. And I'm still growing. I'm still changing along the way. So part of it, you start with who you currently, the picture you currently have. But you combine those two things together. Who is God? And what does the Bible say who you are, and what do other people say about who you are? And look to your strengths. I mean, some of this is purpose. Look to your strengths, look to your weaknesses, but get a clear picture. Begin to paint a picture of this.
I think it's important to who we're listening to say who we are, right? Like you're not saying, your family member who treats you badly or your friend who says bad things about you. That it's get around godly people and listen to who they say you are, and let that help shape your identity. I would assume, right? I mean, I think we've all had people in our life that tell us we're not good enough, or we can't do this, or they tell us you're not, you're a failure, or you're bad, or whatever it is. That's not what you mean when you say listen to what people say.
No.
No,
I think there's two groups of people there. The people who care about you.
Yeah.
And typically what's so interesting is your family will often be incredibly honest with you, but not necessarily in the moment when you ask them answers to your questions.
Yeah.
Simon Sinek, I think is how you pronounce his last name, Sinek. He's been a speaker actually at Global Leadership Summit.
Okay.
And he wrote a book here not too long ago called Start With Your Why. But he did a TED Talk that really is designed to help you understand your why and your vision. He said, if you want to understand your why that will really motivate you, he said, ask other people, but don't ask those closest to you, because when you ask them, they aren't always going to be honest with you. They'll be honest with you when they're frustrated with you, but not honest with you. So, and he talks, you can look it up, when he talks through, ask other people, like ask your friends, why do you enjoy being with me? He said, and they'll give you kind of surface answers at first. And he's just sit and wait till it gets real uncomfortable and let them go. And he said, as soon as they hit an answer that emotionally moves you, it hits your why.
Yeah.
And he said, but it takes a while to get there.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get there. But you need to understand this.
I think you can use, so like New Hope has like a purpose and a vision listed, right? And I think you can use that as example.
Our purpose, ultimately, it comes from Matthew 28, is to make disciples.
Yep. And
our strategy is go, grow, and give. That's kind of our how, our why. Our purpose is to make disciples. Our how is to go, grow, and give. But our vision is based on what do we want this to look like.
Yeah.
And we put it this way, and this is a great way there's two ways to kind of put this. Either say, I imagine, or we picture, for us at New Hope, we picture a gathering of people in every community in North Dakota and eastern Montana who are pursuing Jesus and introducing other people to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
That's our picture.
Yeah,
that's our vision.
That's our vision.
You know, for me, at a fairly early age for me, God revealed my purpose sitting on the mountainside in Montana, which is a great place.
You have the fanciest, this is where I got my purpose
I
from
know.
God's
It's
story.
fun.
You got to sit on
It
a
wasn't
mountain.
a burning bush, but it was pretty cool.
It's close,
Yeah.
borderline.
Sitting on a rock up there, and, there was an eagle flying over. I mean, it was one of those moments.
my
It was
word.
pretty cool.
We need to make a movie.
But my purpose, and I actually have this hanging on the wall in my office. It's in a spot where not everybody, sees it all the time,
Yeah.
but it's for me.
Is it the picture of Dennis Rodman?
There is a picture of Dennis Rodman in my
that's not the
office.
one you're talking about.
And if you want to know why, that's the question for next week.
Come ask Pastor. Yeah, there you go. We'll bring it up next week.
But my purpose is to develop mature followers of Jesus in every circle of my influence. I can't do it everywhere, but where I'm allowed influence.
Mm-hmm.
And my how for this season of my life is to lead through the New Hope Network.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But my vision, this is what motivates me, is I picture a day standing in front of the throne and meeting maybe dozens, maybe hundreds, maybe more. The more greater, the better, obviously, but not that I'm personally responsible. But meeting people who I maybe have never even met, who are not just in heaven, but who grew in their faith because I got to be a small part and I get to sit and hear the story somehow, some way. I look forward to that day of spending the first 100 years, just hearing some of the stories and getting to know people who may not even know my name. Have ever known my name, but there was a part of that because I don't want it to be about me, but I want to be part of their journey if I could.
Does my vision need to be like eternal? I don't mean like have eternity in mindset, but like yours is your vision, your focus completely on what it's going to be like in that moment in eternity, or the beginning of eternity. Where can my vision be more like the example you gave of the church, right? Where our vision is this is what acting on our purpose looks like here and now. More so than is that okay?
And I think for us there's big vision and there's small visions.
Oh, sure.
Like for me, part of that vision for me is as I lead New Hope Network, is to get a clear picture. I see a gathering in every community. I don't know what it would be for you because coaching basketball and influencing young adults and students, high school and college, I know matters to you. So for you, what would that vision be, that picture of someday in the future, or even at the end of a year? What would that look like? And to have that in front of you, something like that. So really the question is, what's your vision? And you need to start with what we've talked about the last 2 weeks. Start with your purpose. Right. Start with your purpose. And your vision will change as you grow. It will change with your context. It will change with your season. And just part of this is what I call blue sky. And I picked that up from Disney Imagineering years ago. Just begin to imagine if this purpose were to carry out, what would this look like and what motivates me? And write it. It helps to write it down. Whatever works for you. It can be shorthand. I could see someone like my wife or your wife, they might draw it out instead of writing it out. For me, it might be 5 bullet points, because I don't want to write it all out. But take time to pray. Take some time to listen, some solitude. But here's some examples. So you could say your purpose is as a teacher is to influence high school students as a teacher. But your vision would be dozens of students every year making positive choices that influence our future. I've got a friend who that would very much describe her vision. A coach, we talked about that. What about a marketplace leader? My purpose is to build great businesses that influence our community and potentially influence the kingdom. What's the vision for that? And you could talk about a place where all of our employees love to work and are motivated. Those kinds of things. You could play with that.
So you have homework for us?
I do have some homework for this.
Side note?
Yeah.
I feel like, that kid in class who, you know, the teacher
Yeah.
finishes the lecture and the bell rings and everyone's like, yes, it's Friday. And then the one kid's hand fires up and he's like, Pastor Mike, you forgot to give us our homework for this. That's how I feel every week when I ask. Our producer is nodding at me saying that is who I am.
Yeah.
Every week when I ask for homework, I'm like, man, I didn't want to be that kid, but I am that kid. What's our homework for this week?
I think if you haven't listened to the previous 2 podcasts on purpose, start there. Start there
for
and
sure.
begin there. If you have, just set aside, and I would say an hour if you can. And if, you know, sometimes circumstances, young children or whatever, it's hard to find that time. But maybe
Are you pointing
early
at
in the
me
morning.
because I'm a young child or because I have young children? Do I want to know the answer to this question?
I'm not going to answer that question. But about an hour, and just almost stream of consciousness. Just begin to write down what might that look like in my life, and just use that as a prayer prompt for a while. Lord, what would this look like? And let it kind of grow in you. It's not incredibly complicated,
Sure,
but it is a process.
And it's a next step.
It is a next
which
step.
we talk about all the time here at New Hope, but we say growth always starts with the next step all the time on the Grow podcast. So that's our next step for this week. I want to thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you come back next week for episode 50. It's going to be great.
I'm a little nervous.
Hattie has promised to throw a party, whatever that
Wow.
means. And then that happened on the lobby at New Hope here, and I'm holding her to it.
Okay.
Quite often things are said on the lobby
Yeah.
that we don't get held to, but I'm holding her to that one. And then we're going to have some fun questions that Pastor Mike does not know about in advance. So it's basically like a systematic theology test is what I'm going to give you.
Yay.
Just tried to think of the hardest class
Yeah,
I took in
thanks.
college.
Do I get to bring my books?
Nope,
No.
not an open book test.
Darn it.
But yeah, make sure you join us for that one. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe so you get notified when the new episodes go up. If you didn't join us this last weekend, whether in person or online, make sure you go and check that out on our YouTube channel. Pastor Leo gave an amazing message.
Yes.
And the worship team from PH Church led in worship. It was just a really cool week. This series is it's a really special series, this multiplied series, as we're getting to hear from our planting pastors and everything. So make sure you're joining us on the weekends as well. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.